Are you committing one of the 7 deadly sins of psychotherapy? If you're a therapist, counselor, or mental health professional, listen up, because in this series we're diving deep into the biggest mistakes of psychotherapy and how to fix them. Welcome to the 7 deadly sins of psychotherapy. In this series, we're discussing the modern mistakes of professional mental health, with the hope that together we can identify better practices and improve the outcomes and reputation of the psychotherapy discipline. The 6th deadly sin of psychotherapy has led to the loss of respect for the career of psychotherapy, an insufficient therapist workforce, and the modern American mental health crisis. The 6th deadly sin is preoccupied professionals. It's no secret that mental health care has long been in a professional crisis. Decades of neglect by lawmakers and insurances have led to low compensation and high turnover, which forces us to ask the question of whether psychotherapy is even technically a profession. Professions exist when professionals do their trade exclusively, becoming time-honored experts of their craft. You don't see a lot of surgeons or lawyers who also have side hustles as yoga instructors, real estate agents, or bartenders. But this is exactly the situation that we see in mental health. Workforce studies show that more than half of licensed mental health providers do not work exclusively in mental health. A significant portion only work part-time, relying on the income of a spouse or side hustle, and a high percentage of full-time therapists also have a second job to make ends meet. This reality doesn't exist anywhere else in healthcare, and the result is a less specialized, less experienced workforce helping fewer people in need. So why aren't therapists doing therapy full-time? Let's compare a psychotherapist to a typical registered nurse. A therapist attends 7 years of higher education and completes an additional 3 years of postgraduate training. A nurse attends 4 years of college and enters their career directly upon graduation. However, nurses earn nearly double what a typical therapist does, despite investing less than half the time and energy training for their job. For perspective, a manager of your local McDonald's earns nearly what a therapist does without a decade of training and lifetime educational debt. The result is that we don't have enough therapists working in the field, and the therapists we do have are overworked and burned out and becoming less effective. But if we have lots of patients and few providers, why doesn't capitalism's reliable supply and demand formula fix the problem? Well, supply and demand only works when demanders pay suppliers, but in healthcare, insurances pay suppliers. Or, in the case of mental health care, they just don't. Insurances control costs by keeping therapists off their panels or paying rates so low that therapists can't live on them and therefore can't accept them. As you hear that, you might recall that this kind of behavior violates several federal laws. But in reality, it's cheaper for insurances to break the rules and pay the occasional fine than obey those rules and pay for therapy. Now, with the demand so high, private equity companies have seen an opportunity and created large internet therapy companies with extremely low pay and almost no professional standards. Now, while none of these insurance shenanigans or private equity predators are technically our fault, we have made the problem worse for ourselves. Psychotherapy isn't taken seriously by the healthcare industry, in part because we don't take ourselves seriously. Decades of exile from other medical professions has convinced us that we shouldn't diagnose or use science to treat or see ourselves as healthcare providers. And this attitude has deteriorated our standards and reinforced the lie that psychotherapy isn't essential to human health. If we want to be compensated as the highly educated, highly skilled, necessary, and valuable professionals that we are, we have to improve our outcomes and reputation of the psychotherapy discipline. But taking ourselves more seriously won't force the powers that be to pay us what we're worth. To accomplish that, we need to unionize the way the registered nurses did. In the early 20th century, nurses got sick and tired of being overworked and underpaid, so they united together to correct the supply and demand formula. Psychotherapists of all disciplines must unite together to demand expansion and enforcement of the existing mental health parity laws. The system abuses us because we are isolated and independent from one another. For that to change, we have to unify. So let's review how we can address the issue of preoccupied professionals. First, we have to take ourselves seriously and address the ways our profession is lowering our standards. Second, we must leave our isolated offices and unify with one another to make the financial system change. As a profession, we must demand that regulators enforce the mental health parity laws and that fines ensure compliance. We also must insist on fair pay and higher standards from the new reality of internet companies who are trying to capitalize on this very broken system. Throughout this series, we'll continue to explore the 7 deadly sins of psychotherapy so we can improve this vital profession for our patients and our communities. I hope you'll join me with a curious and open mind, and that this series will challenge you to discuss with your colleagues how we can all improve. I'm Dr. Jim, the Sin City Shrink. Thanks for watching, and I hope to continue our conversation.